Fall Guys Season 2 has arrived and brought with it knights, wizards, and some new title screen music. Thanks. I hate it. But that music aside, seriously, change it back. We've also got 4 brand new levels to stumble our chums over. In this video, we'll cover how to win, or at least qualify, every time in these new rounds, and we'll go over the old ones as well, just in case. I'll note now that we only cover the solo rounds here, because, as we all know, all you have to do to qualify in the team rounds is not to be on yellow team. Night Fever. Night Fever is a tough gauntlet course with several tricky obstacles to pass. Avoiding the spinning blades is a matter of timing and not falling down the holes in the platform, but the beams with the rotating spikes are tricky. Run against the direction of the rollers and either stop to avoid the spikes or weave a path around them. Head to the edge of the next platform and cross it as Thick Bonkus, yes, that's its real name, starts to move to the other side. Then in the next section, look for a drawbridge raising as you approach it, so it's on the way down as you hit the bottom. Finally, it's just a race to the line. Wall Guys. The trick to getting through Wall Guys quickly is not to build intricate staircases, but instead utilise the jump and grab to climb up and scale the obstacles. By doing this, you can skip ahead by reaching heights you wouldn't normally be able to jump directly to. But make sure you hit your target head on with the grab button held, or you'll bounce off. The little beans still aren't very good at grabbing. Then hammer the jump button or push up on the D-pad to climb up and progress. You'll want to stay near the front on this level, but not first. Otherwise you'll do all the heavy lifting and get left behind when the pack catches up with you and uses all your well-positioned blocks. Hoopsie Legends. The same rules as Hoopsie Daisy apply here, and only the first player through the hoop counts, though this is a solo round, so it's every jellybean for themselves. Use the jump and grab to climb up to reach higher platforms that make the hoops more accessible, and if you see a gold ring, then do everything possible to dive through it, as you'll receive 5 points for this, which will almost single-handedly complete your 6-point goal. Block Party. This one is pretty simple, but it can go wrong fast. First up, try to avoid the crowd. Keep to the front edge of the platform and always return to the middle to give yourself the best chance of making it to one side or the other. Towards the end, once the blocks start coming down the narrow channel, push your way to the front and weave your way to qualification. Dizzy Heights. At the start of this course, go with the direction of the rotating platforms rather than fighting against them. Don't stress about falling down in the second half, as the lower section is easy to navigate through, and make sure you leap onto the final spinning platform so you don't fall down the hidden gap. Door Dash. This is another one of the levels where you don't want to be first, because if you are, unless you get really lucky, you'll end up bouncing off a blocked door and getting caught in a traffic jam of bean people. Instead, hang slightly back from the lead players, letting them determine which doors break down, and then following them through the now open gap. Dive through these gaps when opponents and obstacle parts start piling up, and you'll surf over the top of them rather than getting held up. Fall Mountain. It's important to pick a route here and run it every single time. There's a fair bit of luck involved, but if you get the perfect run, you should reach the crown more often than not. I always go left at the fork, look ahead to see where the balls are rolling down so you can avoid them, and once you hit the top half, use this route to navigate your way through the spinning clubs. Fruit Shoot. Ugh. Fruit Shoot is terrible and should not be played by anyone. This level is almost entirely luck-based, but if you're unlucky enough to have to play this abomination, then be sure to stick to one side of the travelator to help reduce the amount of falling fruit you need to avoid. The only time you need to jump is at the start to get yourself onto the lower platform, but don't ever jump once you're making your way up. It will only slow you down, and in most cases, make you go backwards. Gate Crash. It may feel counterintuitive, but for this one you should head towards the closed gates, as they will open by the time you reach them. Though watch for the side gates on the 2 sets of 4 in the middle, as these operate on a different pattern. On the final slippery ramp, watch for the closing gates as you start your journey downhill, then sprint for it and make a big jumping dive to clear both the gate and the gap. Hexagon. Here, jumping from hex to hex will allow you to keep your current platform level alive for longer. Be methodical with your jumping and plan your route ahead, watching out for other players who you may need to cut off before they do the same to you. Alternatively, you can employ a slightly riskier strategy by deliberately dropping down to the lowest level straight away and then eroding the platform from the centre outwards, Using this method, you should be able to drop unsuspecting opponents straight into the slime. Hit Parade. When you reach the rotating panels here, stick to the edges in line with the sides of the yellow blocks so you can push on through. Then you should be in a good position to get through the central gate. At the swinging balls, watch for their direction and slow down briefly if needed to get past the next one. On the final ramp, head straight up and try not to weave from side to side, as it will only slow you down. Jump Club. This is one of the most basic levels, but there's still a trick or two to remember. First, run against the flow of the spinning beams. This will give you more time and space to adjust your approach and make a successful jump. Finally, and if you want to be mean, bump into or grab other players as the beam is approaching, and you'll knock them off balance and into the slime. Perfect match. This is made up of 3 rounds, featuring icons of 2, 4, and 6 different fruits. Stand at the back so you can see all 3 screens, and remember the fruits on the back row you're standing on. You shouldn't have to move very far in each round, and you'll normally be in close proximity of every fruit. If you're completely stuck, quickly head to the nearest group of players, as they're usually correct. Rollout. Here, do not move along the roller from end to end. Instead, get to one end and then swap between the last and second last platform as and when you need to. If you need more time to swap platforms, run slowly towards the slime in the opposite direction to the rollers until the platforms line up safely. Royal Fumble. Try to predict the route of the tail carrier here and then cut them off and grab it. Unlike the other tail grabbing rounds, there isn't anywhere to hide here, so keep moving once you have it and try to keep switching up your direction. You can launch yourself off the spinning platform in the middle to get an extra boost of speed, which may also help you evade nearby pursuers. Seesaw. If you're in the first row of players here, you should have it easy. If not, don't panic. A lot of players will fall off during this run. Either way, aim to run along the middle of each seesaw where possible to keep it flat, or head uphill to the other side to level it out if needed. Look ahead to see where the next seesaw is positioned to help time your leaps, and use jump and dive when landing on a tipping seesaw so you don't fall and roll when you hit it. Slime Climb. This one really cuts down the playing field. There are several shortcuts you can take along this course, including jumping on the first yellow triangle to bounce up to the next ramp. This can get quite busy, so if you don't do it the first time, make sure you take the long way around. Once you reach the blocks, time your moves so you don't get pushed off the edge, and in the next section, make sure you're alone when crossing the rollers and jump onto the middle one, overcompensating in the direction you're jumping rather than trying to hit it straight on. On the final stretch, keep pushing forwards and watch out for the swinging balls as you scramble up to the finish line. Tail Tag. If you're trying to grab a tail, watch the routes your opponents are taking and then aim to cut them off. Once you have a tail, run under the central platform and around it, keeping as close to the inside as possible. If you lose your tail, use the same route to cut people off and grab another one before the time runs out. Tiptoe. Here, try and stay near the front of the pack, but don't take the lead, letting other players test out the tiles ahead. Memorise as much as the route as possible, just in case you fall off and need to find your way back quickly. The pro tip here is to look out for shaking tiles, as they're the ones that will drop. And remember that there always has to be a connected path of adjacent tiles, so if you see other possible directions are shaking, then you know where to go next. The final 2 rows are also always connected in a straight line, so once you get to the second to last row, you can confidently make a rush for the line. The whirlygig. When you reach the spinning beams, you can either stick to the edges to jump out the way, or take a risk and deliberately get hit and swept along to the end. This doesn't always work, but when it does, you'll find yourself at the front of the pack most of the time. In the last section, don't bother with the middle travelator ramp, as the blade at the top is spinning so fast that you'll almost never get through. Instead, save some time and go straight for one of the outside routes. Finally, watch the position of the slow-moving blade, and then jump and dive to ensure you clear the gap to the finish line platform when it's open. And that is how to win, or at least qualify, in every round for Fall Guys Season 2.